The following is a presentation of the iRacing Esports Network.
Autodromo Internazionale Enzo Edino Ferrari, a long name for a circuit but one that evokes so much history. In 1994, the circuit farewelled a hero of motorsport. In 2005, it witnessed a changing of the guard in Formula One after half a decade, and when it comes to the iRacing.com platform, this circuit has always provided drama at every twist and turn. Last week's debut of the AOSC would have the race leader start the last lap with a 6-second lead, and still drama would strike and a victory changing hands. Tonight, the Monday night V8 Supercar Strength of Field race will have its own chance to write history as we reach the 50% mark of this season's championship, and to celebrate, we're in for a 34-lap thriller. You're watching V8 Online's coverage here tonight, live on the iRacing Esports Network with myself, Bo Albert, commentating for you tonight alongside Mr. Zachary Hanlon, and of course, Jay Kennedy on the cameras. Zach, it's a 12-round championship. This is week 6, and Jared Filsell currently holds a sizable lead in this season's championship, which might make it look like this is all said and done. But when you consider that only your best 8 rounds are counted, and Jared is only one of a handful of drivers that participate in all 5 rounds up until tonight, there is nothing that can be locked in stone just yet in this season.
No, absolutely right, Bo. And when we have a look at the championship standings with those drop rounds included, you can have a look and see that it's actually not as set in stone as we might think. Jared Filsell, with drop rounds included, only has a 21-point advantage over teammate Sam Blacklock, who's only 21 points behind. And then they're trailed by Josh Rogers, who's 35 points behind, Forzan El Nabi and Wayne Burke, who are still within striking distance as well. And something to consider is that Jared Filsell is not racing tonight, and neither is Josh Rogers. So Sam Blacklock will have to put it all on the line tonight and see if he can pull something out of the bag. And right now, he's looking very strong as he's currently sitting on preliminary pole in the qualifying session.
Yeah, absolutely. Sitting on a 43.5 is a fantastic lap, which has him 0.2 of a second quicker than anybody else. And a lot of drivers electing not to go for a second lap here today, or just to abort after the first lap. So conditions are very, very tough out there, especially in qualifying trim. 32 degrees track temp here today, and also 50% fuel restriction. So these 34 laps, which is going to be one of the longest races of the season, is going to be extremely tough, as we do have the driver of Brenton Hobson coming across the line and does a fantastic time to get himself into P number 4 out of laps now, so just pulls over to the side of the road. Griffin Gardner is a driver who is currently on a lap, about to finish it into the final corner now on the power, which is very tricky to do when you see your delta is up. You know you've got an improvement waiting for you at the start-finish line. To get the power down is oh so crucial. 44.7 at the moment. Will it be an improvement? It's a 44.5, and that will jump him up to P number 16.
Yeah, very nice job there for Griffin Gardner. And I think we don't really have as many competitors as we normally would tonight. We're sitting on 23 cars for this grid, but having a look at it right now, the top 9 cars separated by less than half a second. And even really the top 10 cars are within pretty much half a second. So I think we're going to have a really, really tight race tonight. And as we've seen from other series and also this Monday night official series in past seasons, these Imola races never cease to disappoint.
No, they don't. We can only just think back to last season, which was a classic between Marlon McMullen, the reigning champion of this series, who is not racing in this series anymore, and Brady Myers, who is racing. And for someone we used to call an Imola specialist, 7th place is a disappointment for Brady, but nonetheless, there is no more time for these drivers to improve. Qualifying is done, and this is how your grid is going to stack up for 34 laps at Imola, and it's going to be Sam Blacklock taking pole position 0.2 of a second clear of Synergy Sim Racing's Jordan Ross and Wayne Burke, and make that another one, Brenton Hobson. A great top 4 starts for all of the Synergy Sim Racing cars, with Ian Ford for Evolution Racing Team in P number 5. Brett Loxton will kick things off from P number 6 with Brady Myers, Riley Blythe into the disgusting purple rims on his car, Corey Preston and Cooper Webster, your top 10.
Yeah, then we've got Steve Jansen out of 11th place, followed by Ross Rizzo in 12th. Scott Larnack's going to take out P number 13 with Michael Taliancic in 14th position. Jamie McKnight will be starting out of 15th in his relatively new ERT colours, and he's got Griffin Gardner, who we were on board before, with in 16th. Adam Highland out of 17th. David Kinmond in 18th position. Greg Sharp in 19th. Brendan Jackson will round out your top 20, and then we have Dominic Savicki, Caesar Terron, and David Miller rounding out your 23-car grid. And Sam Blacklock has quite it's a relatively short run down into turn number 1, but very easy for cars to attack from behind. And he's got 3 Synergy Sim cars, which are going to be roaring to get past.
Absolutely. It might look like a simple run into turn number 1, but when you get to turn number 1, it's turns 2 and 3 following straight after, which means the field can bunch up very, very quickly. And also, those that are opportunistic have the real opportunity to make up a lot of ground. It might only be 23 cars here today, but the strength of field is peaking over 3,700. So the winner of this race will be walking away with some very nice points indeed, as we get ready for 34 laps here at Autodromo Internazionale Enzo Edino Ferrari. The cars sit on the line, the revs are rising, and the green flag will fly, and we are away for 34 laps. Sam Blacklock does get a nice launch, perhaps not as nice as Wayne Burke just behind, and also Jordan Ross, the Synergy Sim Racing cars, making their attack known almost immediately into turn number 1, but it will be Blacklock leading. 2 Synergy Sim Racing cars make contact. Ian Ford through the gravel as well. It's going to be a big slowdown. Corey Preston goes around at turn number 1 as well, and is followed by another car. I think that's Griffin Gardner, as they make the run into the second chicane, and they're still very bunched up in your mid-pack. Brady Myers, one of the cars involved, almost into the back of Riley Blythe. He is in an ERT sandwich just behind him. We also have Ross Rizzo trying to make a move on. I believe that's Steve Jansen heading into the Tosa hairpin, which is very difficult to do. Runs it out wide, comes under attack immediately from Scott Larnack, who is also got Jamie Knight behind, who's also in a battle with Taliancic. But for your leaders out front at the moment, it's a fantastic start for Blacklock. Jordan Ross already under attack from Wayne Burke, and Brenton Hobson tucking in just behind for 3 Synergy Sim Racing cars, Zach.
Yeah, it was a little bit messy down into turn 1 there. Ian Ford came in a little too hot, got caught up with Brady, and then as Brady was trying to recover, he tangled up with Corey Preston, and Brett Loxton was having a bit of a slide in through there as well, and 2 of the Synergy Sim Racing cars coming together, and Jordan Ross now coming under a little bit of pressure from his teammate Wayne Burke. Wayne looking to get past very early. As we can see, Sam Blacklock has already gotten a ripper start. He's got a monumental lead already, and Wayne is not going to want to give any more of that up for sure.
No, he won't at all, but he is going to have to find a way past his teammate, because the longer he waits behind Jordan Ross, of course, we don't know exactly what their race pace is at this point in time. But if Wayne Burke does look as quick as he is right now, he needs to get past Jordan quick. He needs to get on their Discord and say, look, Hobo, you're in this battle as well. You can see I'm quicker than Jordan right now. Blacklock is running up the road. You have to let us through now, or else we're going to lose this race. And that is the case at the moment. Across the start-finish line, 1.9 seconds for Sam Blacklock. He is up the road and away he has gone. A fantastic start. And look at this fight just behind all the Synergy Sim Racing cars, which includes Riley Blythe and Brady Myers, who was very sideways and runs a little bit too deep into the second of these tough chicanes. And Ian Ford with a slowdown at the first chicane. Zach, the Evolution Racing Team driver having an absolute nightmare of a start.
Yeah, that's a shocker. He's now second last after starting out of, I believe, position number 5. So, yeah, absolutely shocking for 40, but he's going to have to press on. Doesn't mind playing a bit of an alternate strategy and playing a bit of fuel. So maybe he'll use this fight back through traffic to do some fuel saving, maybe run a little longer on this stint and try and pull something off at the end. But absolutely, he's going to have to work with that for the rest of this race, unfortunately for him. But there are a few little battle packs forming up. No one's really made a big breakaway from the leaders, with it's the exception of the leader himself, Sam Blacklock, doing very well indeed. However, Jordan Ross, after having some intense pressure from his teammate Wayne Burke behind, has been able to settle himself down, and on this lap has managed to equal the pace of Sam Blacklock, which is coming across the line now, and it's about a tenth slower for that lap for Jordan Ross. So he's a little more in the groove now, and as we can see, Wayne Burke behind has just decided to ease off the pressure a bit, but Hobbo behind is not on Wayne Burke there. So Wayne Burke might have to get a bit of a hurry up so that Hobbo can get through. And Riley Blythe, also one to watch out for. We've seen him do a lot of good work over the past, and Rizzo's just gone off. A couple of cars actually going off just in the background there as they were coming through the exit of turn number 4 there. So we'll see if we can get a replay of what happened for you there. Now Michael Talyancic having a look down the inside of Jamie McKnight. Jamie going to hold it down the outside. Gets a little bit of a better exit. Now Ross Rizzo's having a peek on either side, looking to see if he can take something out of this little battle here. He's going to tuck back in. Talyancic is going to slide his way through turn number 9 there, and he's going to retain that position. But Jamie McKnight now having to put on a defensive for Ross Rizzo, and David Kinman just tucked in behind there as well. Will definitely look to make anything work out of this little battle, and they are scrapping quite a bit now, but all just tucking in for turns 11 and 12. That very tight chicane there, very difficult to pass through there, although we have seen it done previously in this V8 Supercars official series in the past, so maybe one of them will get a little braver later on in the race. But we'll just take you up to the yeah, Riley Blythe just had a massive moment as he was coming out of the final corner, and he's now going to have to relinquish that position to Brady Myers. So Brady, after having a bit of an unlucky start, has a little bit of luck turn his way. We can see on Brady's car, he's got a bit of the car missing on that front left quarter panel there, which could be affecting his speed slightly. Doesn't look like his steering is affected by that at all, so maybe just a little bit of pace, but he's now got some clean air to catch up to the Synergy Sim Racing boys of Hobbo, Burke, and Ross. And Ross is actually starting to claw that lead back in now. Last lap around a 44.4, Sam Blacklock a 44.9. So it's going to take a little bit of time at that rate of closure. However, if he's being spurred on by his teammates behind him, Jordan Ross might be able to just creep that gap back ever so slowly, and that should open them up for a bit of a battle, hopefully around the pit window, which would possibly cause someone to force the hand of another, and then we can get the strategies going. As we said at the end of the beginning of the broadcast, sorry, pit stops are going to probably be around the halfway mark of this race, as we have got the 50% fuel load on right now, and so we would expect cars to be coming in around lap 17. However, as we saw last week, cars coming in significantly earlier in a longer race to try and get a bit of that undercut going. So we'll see how that pans out, but for the time being, the pack to watch seems to be this one that's led by Cooper Webster. He's got a massive train right now, followed by Brett Loxton, Steve Jansen, Michael Talyancic, Scott Larnack, Jamie McKnight, and Ross Rizzo. And David Kinman just falling off the back of that pack a little bit, but still not too far away. And McKnight having a bit of a look round the outside of Scott Larnack. They're not going to be able to do anything. Slides a little wide as they come through turn number 1. And Scott Larnack's actually just lost it as they come through turn number 3 on entry there. Just got some massive oversteer. Lucky he caught that before he went spinning into the wall, but he's now receded positions back to behind Kidman, and he's going to have a lot of work to do from there.
Yeah, absolutely. That is the worst place to be losing a position or losing the back end of the car like that. Apologies for the technical issue, guys, but thankfully do have a crack of a race on happening at the moment as Ross Rizzo finds himself now side by side with Jamie McKnight heading up the hill to a very quick left-hander, but not brave enough to keep the nose up the inside there. McKnight will continue to lead this train, which has been split up a little bit by that little moment for Scott Larnack and the Webster train, now down to just Loxton, Jansen and Taliantich. And then McKnight has his own little choo-choo train just happening in the background. But like you were just saying there, Zach, it is going to be interesting because another factor we need to talk about is just how long this pit lane is. And that is something that's going to weigh up on a lot of drivers' minds because 2 pit stops, you're going to have to go down that very long pit lane, not once, but twice.
Yeah, and I mean, that's going to open up the strategy quite a bit because if you get 2 sets of fresh boots, how much do you want to maximize the advantage of that undercut? And as we can see right now, there are a lot of battle packs of 3 to 4, sometimes even 5 or 6 cars. So there's a lot of opportunity to be gained by coming in, getting a few quick laps in on some fresh rubber and jumping your opponents in the pit. So Ross Rizzo now having a bit of a look on Jamie McKnight as they come down into turn number 1. Ross very late on the brakes, taking a very tight line into turn number 2, and Kidman, oh my goodness, Kidman doing an incredible job not to pile in the back of Jamie McKnight there, just locked the rears as he was trying to follow in through, and those guys coming in very quickly, but even with all that happening, Ross Rizzo able to make that move work on Jamie McKnight. But yeah, I suspect there'll be a couple of guys here pulling the trigger fairly early, pretty much as soon as that pit window opens, so that they can try and undercut quite a few of the drivers around them.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you were saying, it could be so critical to get that undercut on a few drivers, as we do have a little bit of a battle pack happening right towards the back of the field. Brendan Jackson under attack from David Miller, as they're going to go side by side, very close racing, and it will be the driver of Brendan Jackson getting himself into that 22nd place. But overtaking, we've seen it so many times at Imola, it is very easy to do if you can get a very nice exit, but strategy is always going to be at the forefront of a driver's mind, because that's where you can make the real big seconds. You can make tenths of a second on a track, but you can make seconds in the pit lane if you can nail the strategy. And that's what a lot of these drivers really have to do. Out front, still 2.2 seconds for Sam Blacklock out front, led by just ahead of Jordan Ross, Wayne Burke, and Brenton Hobson, the 3 Synergy sim racing cars, all in a train at the moment in a very nice formation, and no real challenges for those guys. So they're able to just use their slipstreaming tactics just to save a bit of fuel and perhaps get a bit of that gap to Sam Blacklock down via slipstream, which will help them out quite a lot.
Yeah, absolutely, and that could even open up a bit more opportunity for Burke and Hobbo, as they're able to probably just save a little bit of fuel coming down, in particular into turn number 1. It's a spot on the track where you can lift and coast pretty heavily, and you might be able to save maybe 100 or 200 mil per lap there. And even though that is only a couple of 100 mil, it does all add up once you've been running around for 15 or 20 laps. So they might be able to run an extra lap on fuel or take a few seconds less. But just having a look at Jamie McKnight now, he's under a little bit of pressure from Scott Larnack and hasn't been looking extremely comfortable in that ERT machine, just struggling to get the power down. And I think one of the reasons it's so easy to overtake at this track, Bo, is not only the way that the track is set out with quite a few long straights and heavy braking zones, but also just the fact that there are so many things to take into account. Yeah, he got very, very close there. And Scott Larnack might have a bit of an opportunity, actually. Going to have a look around the outside here. Jamie's going to take the defensive line, and he's going to close that off for Scott pretty quickly. So I think it's really hard around this track. You've got to hit the curbs right, and then you've also got to make sure that you get the traction out of them. And those two things on their own are difficult, and then combining them together in so many places around this track just adds. And I think that those minor little mistakes and also heavy braking zones making sure you get your braking markers right, as Jamie McKnight hasn't quite done there. He's slid wide coming into the final corner, and now Scott Larnack has a very good run, and David Kinman might even get on in this too. He's got a double slipstream, and he might like to make it 3 wide as they come down into turn 1. We'll see how brave he's feeling. Not quite. He's going to try and go through with Jamie McKnight on the inside line. Scott looking around the outside. That gives him the inside for turn number 2, and he's going to go round the outside at 3. So nice job there. And Kinman still having a look. He's actually going to come under attack from Dominic Savicki, who makes a very nice little move there, just carrying the momentum through those corners with that little gap that he had up to it, and using that momentum to slot himself past Kinman there. So nice job by Savicki, and good job by Scott Larnack there, making his way around the outside of Jamie McKnight.
You've got to love these little mid-pack scraps where everyone's just chopping and changing positions at every corner. Fantastic to see, as we have multiple overtakes happening in just the first half of this lap alone. Awesome racing from all involved, and I'm sure this will continue on for the next few laps as McKnight is not letting Larnack go. And it's going to be a little bit of deja vu for Scott Larnack, of course. When he did drive for Evolution Racing Team, he ran an orange ERT car. So right now he almost has his very own X car in the rear mirror, and that is what he's trying to run away from and catch Ross Rizzo, who is the car ahead of him. So lots of chopping and changing in this mid-pack, and one driver that did make up a move just recently was Adam Highland on Greg Sharp as well. So lots of changes as Sawicki actually now finds himself getting a slowdown on the exit of the chicane and loses that position that he did gain on Kinman. So all that hard work is gone now as McKnight now really beginning to put the pressure back on Larnack. I said this battle wouldn't be over, and a squirrely exit for Larnack on the exit. Not going to do him any favors down this enormous front straight, side by side down the straight, which is not straight at all. Lots of kinks here at the Imola circuit, and the preferred line will go to Jamie McKnight. But how brave is he feeling under brakes? Larnack not going to shy away from a challenge into turn number 1. There is nothing he can do. McKnight slides through. A little bit of slides from both involved. Larnack through turn 2 with all kinds of opposite lock engaged on the TTL Esports Commodore. But McKnight gets that position back.
Yeah, very nice job there by Jamie McKnight, and Dominic Savicki now having to defend from Adam Highland. Maybe he got another slowdown there because he's dropped off Kinman quite a bit there, and now having a look down the inside is Adam Highland, and he's going to, with hopefully a little bit of traction on the exit there, take that position. Not quite done yet though. He's going to have to take it down the inside at turn number 8. Will he be able to hold on? He has the preferred line, taking a very, very shallow entry there, and they're going to run by side all the way through this corner. Now for the double right-hander, very tricky in a V8 Supercar this section, and Savicki knowing that, just backing out a little bit, and he's going to give the outside line to Highland there. So Highland going to have to defend. He's got this little train behind him, and Savicki was showing some good pace just before, so he'll be wanting to get back through. But Highland's also been clawing his way back, and I've just noticed as well that the cars of Ian Ford, we've actually had a few cars pit. Yes, we've had Michael Taliancic, Brett Loxton, Griffin Gardner, and Ian Bird all pit, and now we have Wayne Burke in the pit lane as well.
Yep, so pit stops are really beginning to take shape as Steve Jansen joins Wayne Burke in the pit lane. So drivers beginning to think strategy here, and that is something they have to do. And like you were saying earlier, the undercut can be so huge here, and Wayne Burke really going to benefit from that. Of course, he was the second in the Synergy Sim Racing train, so he's been able to fuel save a bit. So expect this to be a lightning quick stop for Wayne Burke. Most of the times we've seen around the 15 to 16 second mark. We'll see where Wayne Burke stops the clock, and it's going to be a 16-second mark. Of course, he did go that lap longer as well, but he should come out comfortably ahead of the likes of Ian Ford. So we'll wait and see how this all plays out, because now the pressure is going to go to guys like Sam Blacklock, our race leader. He has to potentially respond to that. Jordan Ross, who is going to be under direct pressure from that pit stop from Wayne Burke, because he is the first car that was ahead of Burke.
Yeah, and I'm actually just having a look at Brenton Hobson. Brenton Hobson's just gotten a massive move on since Wayne Burke came into the pits. He's now right on the back of Jordan Ross, and if Jordan doesn't get a bit of a hurry up, he could possibly lose a position to Hobbo here, and if Hobbo comes into the pits now, he might be able to get the jump on Burke if Burke hasn't had a fantastic outlap. So these guys coming down into the pit entry area now, so we'll see what they do. I suspect that they probably will be pitting. And Blacklock, our race leader, has come in, and both of these guys have come in as well. So Wayne Burke is the little bit of a bump there as they came into the pits for the teammates. Jordan Ross just getting a bit of a hello there from Hobbo, and Hobbo definitely doing a good job this race so far, up from his most preferred position of 6th place. So just having a look where Wayne Burke is now, and he is coming up through down to turn number 14 and 15, which is the final 2 corners on this track. So about a 10-second or about a 15-second stop for those cars, and he's coming around the final corner now. Nice on the power. So will Wayne Burke be able to do anything with the undercut here? Sam Blacklock is off the jacks and has left the pit lane, and the others behind him, but Wayne Burke is coming charging through, and he's got it done easily. So very nice work there from Wayne Burke on the undercut. He's now got hot tires, and Sam Blacklock might have to use the rest of this lap to heat those tires up pretty quickly, because if he doesn't, he's going to fall right in the clutches of Wayne Burke here.
How does 2.7 seconds gained in the pit stop alone sound for Wayne Burke? A huge gain for him there. And Blacklock a little bit under pressure, did not get a nice line through that second chicane. Of course, coming out of the pits, needs to get into his rhythm once again. He did that entire first stint without seeing a single car, clear road. All of a sudden, he has a car just not too far away in his rearview mirror. And that's a lot of pressure. Brenton Hobson also did jump Jordan Ross, and those two are going to continue on, as Talyancic has actually gained a fantastic amount of positions through this as well. He finds himself currently +4 from where he first came into the pits, and he was the first one to dive into the pits. So big gain there for Michael Talyancic, and he is well and truly in the Synergy Sim Racing fight now.
Yeah, well, he's been out on those tires for 4 laps now, so I suspect that towards the end of this stint, he might have to relinquish a few of those positions, but he's jumped himself up above Brady Myers and Riley Blythe. Normally, Michael Talyancic is one to extend the fuel run rather than cut it short, so looking good on his end this time for Michael Talyancic, but his lap times are already in the mid-45s, and our leaders would probably be expecting to do mid-44s or low 44s. In fact, probably the guys are just, oh no, they'll have to do one more lap before we get a proper lap on the board. But, oh no, Wayne Burke's done a 44.1. There you go. So he's going to have to pick up the pace if he wants to stay in this battle, because he's going to fall off pretty quickly if he doesn't. And I suspect Brady Myers will want to get past fairly quickly as well.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of those drivers will be looking to gain advantage over the other. One driver I do want to point out, though, is Mr. Fuel Save when it comes to GT3, is doing it once again in a V8 Supercar. And Ross Rizzo, one of just 2 cars to be not taking their first pit stop yet, I'd have to assume he would be in at the end of this lap. But at the moment, gets himself into a nice little lead, lots of clear air, and he's only lapping about a second slower than those on new tyres, which, yes, is still an entire second a lap off. But nonetheless, he's still doing very well for his tyre state, as Michael Talyancic loses the spot to Brady Myers now, doesn't have the performance left in his car to fight with Brady Myers on the much newer tyres.
Yeah, absolutely. And just going to Ross Rizzo now, he is coming into the pit at the end of this lap. So we'll see where he works out in the end of all this. But Loxton and Blythe now having a little bit of a battle. And Brett Loxton's been staying pretty quiet since he had that big slide at the beginning of this race. But Riley Blythe is about to introduce him to his matte purple wheels there. And Riley having a fair belief that those matte purple wheels are going to help him with some overtakes this evening. So we'll have to see how that holds true. Right now, though, he is looking very aggressive on the back of Loxton, using as much of the road as he can. Maybe a little too much there. It's getting a bit of a slide as he hit the exit curb on turn at number 15 there. Not quite close enough probably to pull anything off this lap, unless he's feeling very much in trance with Daniel Ricciardo, but not this time. Gonna have to go around for a few more corners before he's able to make a move on that. But Riley Blythe always been putting on a fairly good result, albeit he's had a few incidents in a couple of the last rounds which have hindered his performance, but always one to get very aggressive and not afraid to overtake at any circuit.
No, absolutely. He's a real racer, loves to go door to door with other drivers, loves to make positions work when he can, and doing a very nice job making his way through the field at the moment. Next target, of course, is Brett Loxton, and he almost had a chance in that last lap, just sliding up the rear tyres out of the final corner. So critical, just setting up an overtake around here, because even if you can't get it done into turn number 1, you're able to get yourself close enough, get a nice different line through that first chicane and set yourself up into the second chicane. There's so many different ways to make a move happen around Imola, and Riley Blythe really going to have to experiment with the drivers of Loxton, and now slowly beginning to struggle Michael Taliancic just in front. Heading into the chicane though, not a place you want to be overtaking. And but if you do get a nice exit out of this corner, you can get an overtake set up, but it doesn't look like he's going to be quite close enough, but the slipstream can be quite powerful at the best of times. But I think for Blythe, unless he's feeling very opportunistic, he'll wait for this front straight here, Zach.
Yeah, well, the other thing to consider is as well is Michael Taliancic is pretty much within the clutches of Brett Loxton now as well, and Loxton's also going to be getting advantage from that aerodynamic effect, which is going to prove harder for Riley Blythe to catch up to him. So now Loxton has a good run on Taliancic. He might try and fire it down the inside at turn number 1 here. I suspect he'll try and do something, and Riley Blythe might try and follow through. Brett Loxton getting 2 wheels on the grass as they come into turn number 1. Blythe getting very squirrely under brakes, just taking a little too deep there, and Michael Taliancic able to hold on. And yeah, as we can see there, Riley Blythe now lost probably about half a second just out of that one little mistake.
Yeah, so costly, not a piece of real estate that you want to be having that kind of moment. We saw with Scott Larnack earlier in the race, and that is just the worst possible place to have that kind of moment. But nonetheless, the car isn't damaged, his car's still in one piece, he can continue to fight on for another day. And his pace well and truly suggests that he can get moves done, just like Ross Rizzo can. Gets up the inside of the Tosa hairpin of Griffin Gardner, and Rizzo, the driver with the newest tyres bar one car on circuit at the moment. So Rizzo really going to be flying through this field because he is a master of fuel saving, and we know how good he can overtake as well. So look for Rizzo to play himself into a nice little position in this later stage of the race, because for this final 2 stints of the race here, Zach, he is going to have the newest tyres, and around such a high load circuit where traction is so critical, that is a very nice advantage to have.
Yeah, absolutely. And also he'll have a bit more to use in the second stint as well. And Michael Taliancic now has been overtaken by Brett Loxton, and Riley Blythe going to join the party and fire it into turn number 13 and 14 there. So very nicely done by Riley. And can he make this 2 in 2 corners? He's going to... Oh, if he hadn't have just lit it up there, he probably would have. He's still going to have a bit of a run here, though. It doesn't look like Loxton got the most fantastic of exits himself. And Riley Blythe just starting to claw at the bumper of Brett Loxton. Maybe go for a late move down into turn 1. He's going to show his intention. He's going to be very late on the brakes, but he's going to pull in. Brett Loxton just coming over for a very early apex there to try and close the door. And Riley Blythe files in behind. But yeah, as we were saying about Ross Rizzo, he's got a lot of strategy in his advantage here. He's definitely got a lot more to play with than everyone else. And he's got quite a few cars that are within a relatively good firing range. He's just picked off Steve Jansen in that last lap while we were watching these guys go around. So maybe in the next few laps, he'll catch up to Cooper Webster and even this pack here.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll only have to wait and see what kind of progress Ross Rizzo can make. As just quickly for note, fastest car last time around on track, Brenton Hobson by half a second. And he's putting in a really good performance, has begun to drop Jordan Ross just behind, and is really catching the driver of Wayne Burke ahead really quickly at the moment. So Wayne Burke, of course, we saw him have one of the shorter stops in that first stint, about 2 seconds shorter than the other cars around him on track. He's having to do a lot of fuel saving right now, I believe, just to keep himself in contention. And I think if anyone's going to be challenging Sam Blacklock here today, who currently holds a 2-second lead, I think it might just come from that number 10 car.
Yeah, it's very possible. Just having a look at the laps the last time round, 144.940 for Sam Blacklock, a 144.940 for Wayne Burke, and a 144.484 for Brenton as they come over the line again. Brenton Hobson's still half a second faster, so he's going to be back up on his teammate very, very quickly. And just having a look, Riley Blythe now goes down the inside using all of the brake pedal available, and he just locks up a little too much, gets too much oversteer, and he has to back out. Now he will get a slowdown, so will he have to give that position up to Michael Taliancic? Yes, he will. We'll get a Cut Price Racing replay of that for you, so as we can see Riley just pulling out very late as he came down into turn number 1. Very late on the brakes, just using as much of that pedal as he could, but just getting a little bit possibility of a bit of rear lockage there as he was coming down into turn 1 and had to give up the position to Taliancic as well behind. And something else I've just noticed that's kind of off topic, Corey Preston, after having that very early incident, he also had a very long pit lane stop. So oh, he missed his pit box, we're hearing. So Corey Preston is having a lot more work to do. He essentially moved himself from up around 14th back down into 22nd.
Taliancic and Loxton into the chicane. Not a place you want to go side by side, but they're going to do it anyway. Taliancic launches it across the curb. Loxton, even worse, is going to lose that spot to Riley Blythe. And Blythe is going to make up one more position after that disaster. So he makes up the position, will not lose that position for the entire lap. So very quick recovery for the number 6 car. Late on the brakes, though. So late. 40 might have gone into the back of Taliancic for just a second there. But Blythe back on a charge. Gets a much nicer run than he has done in the last few laps. And this should be a slightly easier move on Taliancic than it was on Loxton, just based on Taliancic's tyre wear. Not going to have a shot into turn 1 unless he's just as brave as he was last time around, which is very possible when it comes to the drive of Riley Blythe. And he does, in fact, go for the dive. Very late on the brakes. He will pull out of it. No, he won't. Launches across the inside curb and sideways on the exit. In fact, for both drivers, Taliancic and Blythe, Loxton has a good run. He gets sideways out of turn number 3. This battle pack is all kinds of feisty right now. All scrapping extremely hard. And Blythe just having to close up a little bit more on Taliancic, who does not get a good run through the second chicane. Opportunity into the Tosa hairpin, but Taliancic late on the brakes, too late, locks up the rears, runs a little bit wide. Blythe just needs to get the power down as smoothly as he can, does a nice job, and it's all uphill from here, figuratively, but will it be quite literally? No, not quite, does not get the move done on Michael Taliancic, who misses another apex. The front tyres on Taliancic's car not working, and how brave is Riley Blythe feeling into Aqua Minerale, the very fast right-hander, tightens into a hard braking zone. So easy to lock the inside front unloaded tyre. Now uphill, easy to light up the rear tyres, a very complex section of circuit. Now this also has Cooper Webster involved, and all this fighting is just bringing Ross Rizzo into this fight little bit by little bit, as Taliancic does not get a good run once again, and he is going to be feeling extremely vulnerable. It's a slowdown, is it? So there is a very big disaster for the driver of Taliancic. Goes all the way back behind Cooper Webster. So Blythe gets himself into clean air. We'll get a good idea of what his realistic pace is at this point in time. And now, can Brett Loxton go with him? How is Cooper Webster going to go? Can Taliancic hold on to his tyres? And will Ross Rizzo be able to side his way through?
Yeah, I mean, those are all great questions, and I'm sure we're going to have fantastic answers for all of them. And you can see, I mean, you just saw the attitude of Taliancic's car all through that last lap. Riley Blythe using one of his favorite trap cards, Relentless Pressure, to cause Michael Taliancic to have to fold there, and doing a fantastic job of doing so. But yeah, there are a few questions to be asked for this battle. Cooper Webster now right on the back of Loxton as well. And Ross Rizzo, I mean, we thought, you know, we went, is he going to catch him possibly? Well, he's caught up to the back of these guys very quickly with all that scrapping that's gone on. And his tyres are 6 laps younger than that of Michael Taliancic, just ahead of him. And Michael also going to have to be worrying about fuel a little more strictly than these guys are. So he's only going to be able to run so far into this stint before he absolutely has to pit. I imagine most of these guys will have a lap or two of variance, or possibly even 3, in what they're able to do, and when they can decide to pull the trigger. But yeah, I think that Ross Rizzo is looking in a very strong position here, and he's just starting to claw his way up on the back of Michael Taliancic now as well.
Yeah, and we'll wait and see how long Taliancic can hold on to it, as he gets very low on the brakes through the chicane once again, really struggling to make his way through, and loses a little bit of time. Not going to be vulnerable to any position changes. but still not what he needs to be. In fact, that might have been a bit of a slowdown as well, as he loses quite a lot of time to the driver in front. So Taljantic really struggling, and it's only going to get harder from here because there is still 16 laps left in this race. So he starts to take 2 sets of tyres quite a long way through this race. In fact, that was not a good exit for him. And even though Ross Rizzo is still about a car length behind, the slipstream and pace difference between these two, this very well could be done into turn number 1, as Loxton also having a bit of a look on Riley Blythe as they head into turn number 1. Late on the break for both of those drivers. None of them make it work just about. Webster goes in a bit wide, trying to get a nice setup on the driver of Loxton through this next section, but doesn't look like he's going to be able to do it. So we'll turn our attention back to Taljantic, who we've seen struggle quite a lot in the chicanes, especially the second chicane in particular. Not too good on the exit. So we'll see what Rizzo can do on the exit. Not quite enough to get a send up into the head hairpin. But one driver that is doing a send is Cooper Webster into the door of Brett Loxton, moves him aside. Thank you, sir. I'll go through, but not without a bit of a dent in the door. An aggressive move, but nonetheless, he did go for the opportunity, and sometimes in V8 Supercar or touring racing, Zach, that's what you have to do.
Yeah, I think in V8 Supercars especially, there's nothing wrong with a little bit of door rubbing, and Brenton Hobson has made his way past Wayne Burke for position number 2 on this lap, and those Synergy Sim racing cars are all back up together, but in the almost the complete opposite order in which they started this race. Jordan Ross now at the back of that train, Wayne Burke still the middle of the sandwich, and Brenton Hobson now leading that little train of Synergy Sim racing cars. Their main adversary, though, Sam Blacklock, 3 seconds up the road with all that scrapping. So Brenton Hobson has been showing good pace behind his teammate. Time to put that into practice now and really start churning out those laps so that he can start closing in that gap. And Jordan Ross is actually going to go down the inside of Wayne Burke now into turn 1 as well.
Yeah, and Taljantic's just about put Ross Rizzo into the pit wall. He squeezed him so far to the inside wall, but it doesn't look like he's going to have anything to fight with. He has the preferred line, but Rizzo on the outside should have so much more superior grip and does get the move just about done. Not quite clear yet. And Taljantic is hanging on for dear life. He has everything against him in terms of outright pace at the moment and tyre wear, and eventually has to move aside and say, Ross Rizzo, I've got nothing to fight with. You go on, sir. As the battle pack just in front of those two continues to scrap on, and Loxton will probably want a bit of redemption on the drive of Cooper Webster. After that moment, Webster, of course, trying to follow through his driver, fellow teammate of Riley Blythe. But if they continue to scrap, that's going to bring Ross Rizzo into this fight once more. And he's already proven in this stint that he can make 3-4 passes happen at a time. And that is not something you want to be involved in if you're trying to get clean air.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's still got that massive tyre advantage for the time being. And I think that the guys up ahead of him, I mean, Riley Blythe and Cooper Webster, they're teammates. They're probably not going to battle it out too much. So the only thing that's really going to slow them down, I imagine, would be if Brett Loxton tries and puts himself in the middle of that ERT sandwich there. But I don't think he quite has the pace right now to be doing that after getting overtaken by both those guys and just starting to fall off a little bit off the back of Cooper Webster there, especially compared to Riley Blythe. So have to have a wait and see. But I think Michael Taljantic will probably be pitting right now, actually. Just as I was saying that, he comes into the pit lane. The pit window is pretty much open until the end of the race now, with 14 laps remaining. I don't know if they might have to do just a tiny bit of fuel saving to make it home, but I expect that we will start seeing majority of the field come into the pits within the next 2 laps, with the exception of Ross Rizzo. Now, this is where Rizzo really has to be careful in where he decides to pit, because if he still has some life left in those tyres, it might not be so bad, but he could become susceptible to the undercut of Janssen and McKnight, and Loxton and Webster up ahead of him. So he's going to have to watch out in the next couple of laps here.
Yeah, absolutely. Rizzo has a really nice tyre advantage at the moment and will be able to continue that for a few more laps. But like you say, he has to be careful, because even though you can carry the laps longer and it all sounds well and great, being so much faster at the end of the race, you don't want to lose so much time just waiting those extra few laps after everyone else is pitted to where you actually cannot make anything happen. But nonetheless, the Synergy Sim Racing cars tonight having a fantastic race at the moment. And Jordan Ross and Wayne Burke just a little bit close at the moment. Perhaps a little bit too close for comfort because they're beginning to allow Brady Myers to come into this battle just a little bit. And one thing I quickly want to touch on as well, Zach, I'm not sure if either of us have actually picked up on it yet, but Ian Ford has retired from this race.
Yeah, I did notice that. I wasn't quite sure what had happened there. My timing indicates that he could have hit the incident limit on that one, but no real confirmation for that as of yet. But yes, he has not been circulating for the last 5 laps, and he's the highest iRating. He's got the highest iRating of anyone in this field, so very disappointing for Ian Ford. He's going to suffer a big loss from that, but everyone else is now pitting, those who are still in this race. Sam Blacklock, Jordan Ross, Brendan Hodson, Brady Myers, Riley Blythe, Brett Loxton, Ross Rizzo. Probably easier to name people that haven't come in rather than people that have. Wayne Burke, Cooper Webster, Scott Larnack still circulating around, and others might be coming through as well from the back of the field. Brendan Jackson, Dominic Savicki still going as well. So in the race out of the pit lane, it looks like we have a change for position here. Jordan Ross and Brady Myers there very close as they come out of the pit exit. So Brady not quite able to get it done on Jordan Ross there, but right behind, Hobbo doing a good job to extend his advantage.
Oh, Myers immediately up the inside, sends it out of the pit lane. So risky to do on cold tires. They're not warmed up. Contact almost made, and Brady Myers is gone.
Oh, he's disqualified from the race. So, oh man, Brady, I mean, you know, he obviously knew that before he took the risk of making that move, and that is a move, especially coming out of the pits like that. So unfortunate there for Brady Myers. We won't get to see how he does for the rest of the race, but very good for everybody behind him. Just gains 1 position out of fortunality there. So this is where Brenton Hobson really needs to start putting in some good times here. Sam Blacklock is now just down the road, and his teammate Wayne Burke still circulating, probably be in the pits, I imagine, as
he's in the pit lane right now.
Time. Yes,
but that was a very aggressive pit entry, Zach. That was right on the limit of if that would be speeding or not. So we'll be very careful in watching what kind of pit lane time Wayne Burke has, because that was as sideways and as quick as you possibly want to go. And Blacklock actually stuck in traffic on his outlap, has to go up the inside of the 14 car of Corey Preston, gets the move done. That's just a little bit unsettling and has to use a lot more of his tires than he would perhaps like, especially when someone like Wayne Burke, who is trying to chase him down at the moment. And Burke is off the jack, so no speeding penalty, so we'll get away with that, just maximizing every millimeter of road available to him. Blacklock will go past the pit exit now, and this is where Wayne Burke really has to be careful. Hobson also goes through, and in fact, Burke is a lot further back than I thought he would be. He's lost to Ross, and also the driver, who I don't believe is pitted yet, of David Miller gets past as well, which is traffic for him on his outlap. That's a disaster for Burke after what could have been at the start of this race. Yeah, very strange. Burke's pit stop 2 seconds longer than any of his surrounding competitors. Only other person to have a pit stop time similar is Scott Larnack, who's currently in the pit lane too. And yeah, Riley Blythe is also out. So see if I can have a peek back and see what happened there. But it looks like he's run wide. No. Yeah, I'm scrolling as well. He's cut the he's gone too early on the entry into 15, and he's possibly gotten an off track there. And I'd say that he is done. But yeah, wow, it's really starting to get weird now. Brenton, can I say, Wayne Burke as well was so lucky not to get a speeding penalty. I clocked him through the cones at 73 kph, which is 14 kilometers an hour over the pit lane speed limit there. So he was able to slow it down a little more than required at some point in that pit lane to not get a penalty there. So a few of the big names that we were seeing and looking forward to battle throughout this race, Riley Blythe, Brady Myers, and Ian Ford, have all exited this race due to an accession of incidents. So
They only get 17 incidents in this. We do have to consider as well that this is a slightly longer race than we would normally expect from these guys. A race probably would have lasted around this long. About 45 minutes elapsed in this race so far. So a few of these guys, including Wayne Burke, who just slides it out on the exit of turn 5 there, getting up into that incident limit level, and they've still got 10 laps to go as well.
Yeah, exactly. And Imola is a circuit where there's a lot of runoff you can use, but also a lot of runoff you can't use, and it will get detected for an incident. So a lot of drivers just really beginning to rack up those incidents, and we're beginning to see quite a few victims. We don't normally see in these races anyone disqualified, and today we've got 3, including 2 in the space of a single lap. So very difficult, especially when there is still 10 laps to go, like you say. So drivers really have to be careful, as we just have a few of our leaders making their way through and trying to make some ground up at the moment. Hobson, last time around, 0.2 of a second quicker than Blacklock, so he's really trying to make a charge at the moment, Hobson. He's really trying to make this work. And even though 2.5 seconds is a big mountain to climb with just 10 laps to go, I think Hobbo is really gritting his teeth at the moment and really trying to make something happen here.
Yeah, and you know, the longer that we get into this race, the more fatigue sets in. It's not particularly late here in Australia for most of us. It's only about 9:15 in the evening. But you know, having driven for 45 minutes under intense pressure, well, I mean, Blacklock hasn't been under a lot of pressure. He's kind of been cruising, so, but it is all for him to lose. And that time round actually extends his advantage ever so slightly. Hobson actually having a fairly poor lap compared to his teammates as well. So it's definitely not impossible to for Hobbo to be getting back up there, but it does have to be said there's probably more pressure on him to catch up to Blacklock than there is pressure on Blacklock to be losing that position to Hobson.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll wait and see how that battle unfolds, as the two we've seen Synergy sim racing cars all night just be very close to each other. And Wayne Burke is trying to make a little bit of ground up on the driver in front of Jordan Ross. So that's one of the closer battles or packs of cars we do have on circuit, just almost a second at the moment on track. And we'll wait and see if that can unfold. But another pack that is beginning to unfold is the one behind Mr. Jamie McKnight. Involves David Kimman and Adam Hyland, who is in a interesting... A meme. Okay, we'll go with Meme Machine. It's a fantastic livery, and awesome to see people having quite a lot of fun with their liveries in an official series. But this is the serious time now. This is the business end of this race with just 9.5 laps to go. And McKnight, in those Evolution Racing Team colours, still trying to get used to that at the moment. Still very good performances he has been putting in. And great to see his development continue. But we'll wait and see if he can hold off David Kimman. And it looks like he's doing that at the moment, just pulling a nice little margin in this middle sector of the track, which is so hard on car setup, Zach. You really have to set your cars up to take these curves.
Yeah, I mean, luckily these V8 supercars are a bit wallowy, and I think they've got pretty long springs in them because they just mash those curves monstrously. But it's definitely something you need to consider when you come to Imola is you know, the curbs, being able to use those curbs to their full potential is a rather large advantage. So being able to glide over those like butter as best you can helps you immensely, especially through the chicanes at Tamburello and Variante Alta. Those are two very big areas where it's very important to have the car set up. But you've also not got to compromise the amount of traction or the amount of turn-in or the amount of, you know, front-end grip that you want to have, as well as you're changing all those damper settings and the amount of spring perch that you have and where the roll center of mass is. It's all very, very complicated. If you've never tried setting up one of these V8 supercars, I do implore you to try and do so, because it is very, very difficult.
Yeah, it certainly is. But this battle for the lead just continuing to ebb and flow quite a bit. On lap 24, it was Sam Blacklock pulling 0.07 faster than Brenton Hobson, so he extended his lead. On lap 25, Hobbo gained 0.7 of a second, so this gap ebbing and flowing quite a bit, and I still want to keep an eye on this. I want to know if Blacklock is perhaps fuel saving a bit or just looking after his tires or something, because this gap was at one stage of the race about 3.5 seconds, closer to 4 seconds, and Hobbo's now got it down to just under 2 seconds. It looks like Blacklock will pull away just a little bit on this lap. But as the pressure begins to mount, Sam Blacklock has never won one of these official broadcast strength of field races. The pressure is beginning to start to get to him, perhaps. And it's interesting to just see if Hobbo can perhaps use that to his advantage in those last few laps when the pressure really mounts on Blacklock's shoulders and make that charge happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you know, it's not entirely out of the realms of impossibility that, I mean, anyone who watched the Formula One last night, I won't put up any spoilers for you, but a certain world champion who was leading the race went off all by his own with little to no pressure, albeit with a tiny bit of weather involved. But, you know, all of those things, and especially if you have that consideration of he's never won one of these big races before, pressure might just be starting to build up. He's very close to attaining that goal. And with only 7 laps to go, there are so many places around this track you could just momentarily lose your concentration for one moment and it's all over. And bit by bit, especially on this lap as well, Hobbo is starting to close in a little bit. Looks like he's gotten around 1/10 of a second on this lap so far. But yeah, I mean, but Brenton's now well within view, and the more that he gets bigger in those mirrors to Sam Blacklock, right now he'll be nothing more than a speck. But the closer he gets and the bigger he becomes in those mirrors, the more of a realization Sam Blacklock will have that he's starting to become in a bit of trouble. And all those little things can just put you off your driving a little bit, and that's when the mistakes can start to set in.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always a lot of pressure on your shoulders when you see that driver behind just chipping away, and the gap gets smaller and smaller, as it will do on this lap. It was 2.1. The gap now stands at 1.7. So Blacklock just pulls away a little bit, and then Hobbo takes a big chunk out on the next lap. So Hobbo getting into a nice little rhythm, really beginning to settle in at the moment and get these curbs worked out. And through that first chicane alone, that is 0.2 of a second gain for Brenton Hobson. He is trying to make something work here. Blacklock very well could just be saving his tyres for any kind of attack at the end of the race and will just hold the gap at a second. But that's a risky thing to do, especially if one mistake can send you off into the gravel, get a slowdown, put the car in the wall, and it's all over. We'll wait and see if Blacklock has anything in reserve to respond to this pressure being mounted by the number 6 driver. Well, we call him the number 6. He's really the number 10 today. He's in P number 2, and he's looking for P number 1. So that is a brilliant effort for him. And we also have just quickly noticed that Adam Highland in the meme machine has found his way past David Kinman, who does look to be struggling just a little bit at the moment, locking up in a few places and getting a bit of wheel spin on Exodus as well. So the balance of these cars really struggling in these late stages of the race. Actually, the tires go off, the track's getting hot, and I've just noticed Cooper Webster's made a bit of an error as well, which is critical because Ross Rizzo is right behind. Slow down there for Webster, has to dart from left to right. Rizzo trying to find a way past the Evolution Racing Team machine, cannot do anything through the Variante Ultra chicane, but now Rizzo well and truly under the rear wing. But this is going to be a bit more tough for the driver of Ross Rizzo because he no longer has this dramatic tire advantage. This is the same lap tires that they pitted on, and this is driver on driver, 6 laps to go. Who can get in that top 5?
Well, Rizzo actually pitted a lap earlier than Webster, so Webster's got a slight tire advantage right now, but Rizzo has been doing a very good job putting in consistent times all throughout this race and just keeping it cruisy, and now he's going to have an opportunity to attack. He's probably just out of striking distance this time around. He's going to just show a little bit of intention there, try get Cooper Webster to take a non-preferred line and possibly cause him to make a mistake. Not going to be able to do it this time as they come through turn number 4 there and into Variante Villeneuve, which is very tricky, high speed, then slow right-hander into the hairpin. Very easy to make a mistake and not carry as much speed as you want through there. But Cooper Webster doing a good job, just losing the rear a little bit as he came into turn number 7 and running a little wide, but able to get some nice traction as he was coming out of the corner there, just drifting it very, very so slightly, but still able to keep the power on very nicely. And you can see, looking at these two guys, very different attitudes as they come into the corner. Cooper Webster going very late and wide on that one, and Ross Rizzo going very early and shallow, but still carrying good speed. And that just shows you some of the variance in setup that these two guys have in their cars as they come through Alta now, and using those curbs to rotate the car. Does Ross Rizzo get some nice traction, and he'll now be doing all of this to set up the run for down into turn number 1. So very important here to go very late on the brakes. Try and get up to the back of your opponent as close as you can. He's within fairly good distance here, probably not ideally where he would like to be, but this is where it really matters. Nice and smooth on the power, using a little bit of that exit curb, not too much. Gets a very nice run. So he's now going to have to use the slipstream. I don't think he's quite going to be able to do it. He's got a couple of kph over Cooper Webster at the moment, but unfortunately that gap just a little bit too far there, about 3 to 4 car lengths. So Cooper Webster doing a good job of putting his car in the right position at the right time to make sure that he doesn't get lapped or passed into turn 1 here.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's all he has to do. Just really try and drive this car straight at the moment. Hit your marks, hit your apexes, hit your brake markers. Do everything you can to make sure that Ross Rizzo does not find a way past, because Ross Rizzo is a crafty little bugger. He knows how to make moves stick. He knows how to unsettle an opponent. And he's doing a very good job at that at the moment. You can see there, through the last 2 corners, Webster just getting the rear tires lit up just a little bit, hurting his exit speed and not allowing himself to go anywhere at all. Just quickly before, we did have Scott Lynak make a move on Brendan Jackson, and Jackson did find his way into the gravel trying to make that move stick, but did recover nicely and is still trying to hunt Scott Lynak back down to get redemption on that one. But we'll stay with Webster and Rizzo at the moment, because Rizzo, if he can get a very nice run over these curbs, which is, let's face it, quite difficult to do when you are behind an opponent. You cannot see the curbs that you're aiming for. Doesn't get the X you would be hoping for. Sometimes when you do get a very nice run, you can send it down the inside and make a move into this final 2 corners, but it's not going to happen this time. So what he has to do here is what you said last time, Zach. Really focus on the exit. Not that left-hander, but this left-hander. And he's a lot closer this time around. Just has to not get any wheel spin, which he doesn't. But I think Webster just got a much better bite out of the rear tires. And once again, Rizzo has to spend another lap waiting behind, as the gap from first to second comes down to 1.2 seconds, 4 laps on the clock.
Yeah, and that is very close to being within draft there. So once Hobbo gets within 1.1 to 1 seconds, I would imagine, that's when he starts gaining that aerodynamic advantage as they come down the pit straight. So if he can make up 0.2 of a second, or even about 0.2 is what he needs right now to make up that gap, and he's doing everything that he possibly can, doing a little bit of a 4-wheel drift as he came through turn number 8 there, and just trying to use all of the rubber on those Dunlop tires to his advantage, and trying not to overheat them at the same time so that he still has grip for the upcoming corners. But Hobbo's been doing a really fantastic job in this final stint, and it really begs the question, what could he have done as he really clobbers that final chicane there? What could have happened if he had been at the front of this train to begin with? You know, he was stuck behind Jordan Ross and Wayne Burke.
Ross Rizzo, big moment under brakes in the chicane. Sorry to cut across him for a moment there, but I did think the driver of Ross Rizzo was going to lose it on the rear brakes into that chicane, and almost piled into the back of Cooper Webster as well. So Rizzo almost had a fantastic shot at getting the move done. Webster a bit deep into that left-hander there, compromises his line just a little bit, but once again, really good bite out of those rear tires for Webster. Holds on. But back to your point, Zach, absolutely. If Brenton Hobson was at the very front of the Synergy Sim Racing train at the start of this race, he would be oh so much closer and would have even more laps to repair and move on Sam Blacklock. Work out where the Trans-Tasman racing car is weak, work out where it's strong, and work with that. If Brenton Hobson continues at his current pace, he'll get there on the final lap. And that is so difficult because you don't know anything about your opponent's driving technique at that point, and you've just got to, as I say, send it.
Yeah, well, you can watch it up the road as best you can, but it really doesn't give you any tactical advantage for when you come into a decent battle. And I mean, it's probably going to be, I can see something desperate coming out here. We'll wait and see what does happen. But Hobbo's looking very aggressive right now, looking very strong through the final section of this track, and looking very quick down the straight as well. Got a few extra ponies under that SSR Holden there, possibly. He absolutely smashing that final chicane in comparison to Blacklock, and you can see how much that has done for him. He was pretty much made 2/10 through that one chicane alone there, so he knows he's quicker through there, and he knows probably that he's quite quick through this final section of the track. As you can see, getting just really nicely sliding the car through that final corner there, and now using all of that speed coming down the straight. He's gained another 2/10 since that final chicane even. So the gap is now only half a second, and we have just 2 laps to go. Oh, wow. He's so close now. Another 2/10 in that braking zone. It's all starting to happen for Brendan Hobson now.
Yeah, absolutely. Hobson has the afterburners lit at the moment. He is attacking. He is throwing everything he's got at Sam Blacklock, and he has added motivation because Sam Blacklock in the number 9 car, flip that upside down. You've got 6, and Brenton Hobson wants to get that car behind him, get that disaster number that is the number 6 away from him, lights the retires out of the Tosa hairpin, and tries to claw a few more tenths on the back of Sam Blacklock as he makes his way up the hill and tries to figure out where he can make a move on this very last lap. Because if he continues out at this rate, he will be right under the rear wing of the Trans-Tasman racing car on this very last lap. As we have the driver of Greg Sharp in the battle at the moment, losing a few spots as well at the first chicane. But we'll keep our eyes on this battle for the lead as Blacklock does not get the nice exit he could have hoped for out of that Aqua and Minerale section of track. And again, Hobson so good through that chicane, gets so much advantage on the Blacklock car in front. And this is going to be a final lap for the ages as Hobson dives his way under brakes in this very hard braking zone. Blacklock already going defensive, costing himself a bit of time, but Hobson also just a little bit too deep and does slide wide. And that's going to hurt him a lot because this is arguably his best chance all race as Blacklock trying to break the slipstream almost immediately. He knows he's under pressure at this point. He knows that he has to defend this position for all his life. He's never won an official series race in the strength of field split. So this is all pressure on Blacklock at the moment. Dives into turn number 1, hits his marks in the chicane, but look at Brenton Hobson right underneath the rear wing. Goes out wide to set himself up for a very nice run sideways on the exit through turn number 3. Now into this second chicane is all about setting yourself up on the exit. Can he send it up the inside at the Tosa hairpin? Almost bumping Blacklock through that corner, but doesn't get the run. Blacklock defends the inside. Hobson has to do something around the outside. Almost touching. Ross Rizzo has been disqualified, I'm hearing, which is a disaster. John Ross, sorry. So that's from 3rd place. That is your podium driver. And he is out of this one as Brenton Hobson just fills the mirrors and a little bit more of Sam Blacklock. Now heading into Aqua Minerale, one of the toughest sections. But if you can nail it, you can get a move done through the chicane if you're so desperate, which Hobson is at the moment. All the curb used, every millimeter of road right now being used, every inch of contact patch these rear tire Dunlops have to give being used. Blacklock defending for all he has. This is where Hobson is so strong. Launch it over the curbs. Get the exit. Blacklock does not get the best exit. A bit of wheel spin there. And this is all about Brenton Hobson now. He's not going to be close enough to make a move up the inside into this final double left-hander. But he's going to go late on the brakes. Try and set something up. Thinks about the outside. Can't do it. Not going to think about the inside. This could potentially be a drag race. Hobson lights up the rear tires. Doesn't have enough. Is this about fuel? Will they both be able to make it to the line without coughing? It looks like at the end of 34 laps at Imola, Sam Blacklock is going to be your race winner after an hour of racing. Brenton Hobson, position number 2, 1/10 of a second behind. What a race that was. Wayne Burke in position number 3.
Yeah, wow. I mean, I really had my doubts about anyone being able to catch Blacklock before the end of this race, but Hobbo was the man to do it. Unfortunately, just didn't quite have enough. I think he did a fantastic job in that final lap. I think what really sealed his fate, though, was when he just ran deep into turn number 14 on that second last lap. I think that if he had nailed the braking zone there, it all would have been on into turn number 1, and he possibly could have gotten the job done. But a very good performance from him nonetheless. A fantastic job from Sam Blacklock, and absolutely nothing to be taken away from him. He got the run early while the SSR cars were all scrapping it out. He got that quick little 2-second advantage, and he made it work for pretty much the entire race. And yeah, as we said, Jordan Ross getting disqualified on the second last lap. Wayne Burke will then take your final podium position as well.
Yeah, what a race that was. We've got your results up on screen, and if you didn't notice, it was Sam Blacklock that took the race win in a fantastic finale ahead of Brenton Hobson. Wayne Burke would inherit that third place on the podium, as unfortunate issues for Jordan Ross. Cooper Webster does indeed get it across the line ahead of Ross Rizzo, who had no retires at the end of the day. Brett Loxton comes home in position number 6 ahead of Michael Taliance, Steve Jansen, Griffin Gardner, and Jamie McKnight, your top 10.
Yeah, then we had David Kinman working his way up to 11th from 18th. Scott Larnack in 12th. Adam Hyland finishing the Mean Machine in 13th position. Greg Sharp in 14th. Dominic Savicki 15th. Caesar Terron from 22nd up into 16th. David Miller from 23rd to 17th. And then the first of our many non-finishers tonight. 5 non-finishers, or 6 non-finishers total actually. Jordan Ross, Brendan Jackson, both getting disqualified in the final laps of this race. Corey Preston succumbing to issues earlier as well, and Brady Myers, Riley Blythe, and Ian Ford all hitting the incident limit much earlier on in this race. But I mean, it does have to be said, this was a 1 hour, 1 minute and 10-second race tonight, so much longer than they would usually have to play for in these V8 online, in these V8 Supercar iRacing official races. But you know, it just goes to prove that you can have all the speed in the world, but if you can't be clean, it's not going to matter on the scoreboard at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure I speak for all of us at the V8 Online and also the viewers of this race. If that's the kind of racing we get for 1 hour races, please, sir, may we have some more.
Bring it on.
Fantastic stuff. And we're not done yet here at V8 Online for this week of racing. On the iRacing Esports Network on Wednesday night, we have the V8 Online Porsche Super Cup Circuit Montreal. There's big curbs, there's big concrete walls, and big rewards if you're brave around that circuit and can make things work. Zach, I know you're going to be racing in that one. What are your thoughts heading into that one?
Well, yeah, I mean, pretty difficult race in the GT3 car there last week. The Porsches are very, very bouncy over those curbs, and you do have to use a lot of them to be fast around there. So we did see some fantastic racing in the Super Cup last time out at Interlagos, and I had a good result with a podium in the final race there. But I think noticeably in the GT3 field, especially, the driving standards seem to be a lot better with lack of safety cars. So hopefully we can have some uninterrupted racing for the Super Cup, and also having the reverse grid for the second race as well will be very interesting as to participate in for sure.
Yeah, absolutely, because that is going to be quite the twist, as you don't know what position is going to be reversed until. It could be position 8, could be 15, or anywhere in between. But what we do know for a fact is on Friday night, the Australian Online Supercar Championship is going to be kicking off at one of the most well-requested circuits we have ever seen for V8 Supercars to race at. You asked for it, ladies and gentlemen. V8 Supercars are going to be racing at Belle Isle. It's going to be a fantastic race. There's lots of concrete walls, so how will the drivers fare in a pack? It's going to be a fantastic display to watch, and very well could be a decider if it goes into the V8 Scops Championship calendar next season. Of course, I'm sure everyone will be tuning in for that one, and of course, if you do want to compete in that as well, be sure to check the forums or the V8 Online Discord. It's going to be a fantastic race, but it doesn't end there on V8 Online, because on Sunday, the Oceanic Endurance Championship, which is going to be another fantastic race. That championship has been going off all season, and the LMP1s and your GTEs are sure to put on another fantastic race. As well as next Monday, we also have the V8 Supercar Series once again. And just in case you wanted more V8 Supercars at Belle Isle, it's going to be round number 7, 27 laps at Belle Isle. Zach, V8 Supercars, Belle Isle. I've said it 100 times, but what a combination do you think that's going to be like?
Well, I mean, it's always fun watching Indy cars go around there, but it's not very often you get to see touring cars going around there. And I think that with the addition of a few walls on top of the paint panels that they already have to rub against each other. I think we might see a few guys with some tilted off-tilt steering for most of that race, but I'm sure it'll be very exciting, and I know that I'm looking forward to taking that Belle Isle track sometime soon in the future as well. Always nice to drive a street circuit, and it's the first real proper street circuit we've got on iRacing as well, so I have no doubt it's going to be an absolute hoot to watch.
Well, it should be an absolute hoot to watch, but it's also been an absolute hoot to commentate on this absolute thrilling round number 6 of the Monday night Strength of Field series. This is V8 Online's coverage on the iRacing Esports Network. If you haven't already, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below. It's a growing channel and growing ever so quickly. Our sim racing esports that we love so much continues to develop into more and more of an incredible series that we love to watch. But from us, on behalf of the entire team at V8 Online, thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.
The following is a presentation of the iRacing Esports Network.